Good afternoon, everyone. I am Nikki Nemickas reporting live for Us Weekly and the Wellness Experience. Today, I'll be interviewing Dr. Suzanne Steinbaum. She's an attending cardiologist who specializes in prevention of heart disease. But before we get into that, I want to tell you guys a little bit about the story about why I'm passionate about this topic, and I'm sure some of you can relate. I grew up in a small town in South Dakota with 5 houses. And growing up in rural South Dakota was a challenge as far as making health and wellness a priority, but I was always the active one. And I remember running on gravel roads and doing what I can to stay active, but there wasn't a lot of opportunity for gyms or nutrition. The closest grocery store happened to be about 45 miles, actually supermarket. There was a small town grocery store, but the actual supermarket was 45 miles from my hometown. So when I moved to the big city to go to college, I pursued a degree in health and wellness. And my whole entire life has been based on learning more and educating others on health and wellness. In 2011, my daughter's dad had a scare with leukemia. He actually passed away from leukemia. And from then on, she was 6 years old, and I decided I wanted to take my life even further and educate people on genetics, health and wellness, and the importance of being a parent and teaching, being active as a parent. So 3 or 4 years ago, knowing that my grandmother had congestive heart failure, she was on oxygen, and I remember working and driving throughout the prairie one day and talking to her. She always looked forward to going to the gym. But one thing stuck out, and as I was traveling the country and modeling and doing all the health and wellness, she said she was really proud of me, but she wished that she had taken initiative in her health more seriously at a younger age. And she was really proud of the things that I've been doing with Addison, and that meant the world to me. A couple of years later, I was on a flight home from Dallas, and my mom was admitted to the hospital and diagnosed with congestive heart failure. And I'll never forget getting off that airplane. Part of me was really frustrated because I work really hard knowing my genetics, but I also have researched my husband, or my late husband's genetics, for my daughter's sake, and wanted to do everything I can as a parent to educate her and be aware of what's coming for her as a young adult and into her adulthood. So I remember getting off the airplane, and the first time my mom walks into my home, she happened to be in the town that we lived in for her health care. My daughter was 10 at the time, and she was a little scared to see oxygen on my mom. And I just remember thinking, this is really hard, but my daughter's an old soul. She's extremely independent and very intelligent. And I have to take a little credit for educating her early at a younger age about healthy eating habits. And she was sponsored for her Instagram, Kids Kitchen with Addie, at the time, and by Fitbook, which was a fitness journal that you can buy in most retail stores and online nowadays. And she walked over to the cupboard in the kitchen, and I have a picture of this that I'm sure you guys will see going viral. But she walked over to the kitchen cupboard, grabbed a book, and said, "Grandma, I gotta tell you something. I love you, and I wanna spend a long time with you, but we gotta change your eating habits, and this book is gonna help you because it has stickers." And it was precious because I wasn't sure how she was gonna react to Grandma being on oxygen forever. But I certainly knew that she understood the concept of the importance of watching your daily habits, and that she was watching what I did. So now my mother is 4 years in on oxygen every single day. She still lives in a town of 5 houses. Groceries are a challenge, and of course, health and wellness is a challenge for her. We can get into that more later, but that is my personal story with congestive heart failure and heart conditions. So I'd like to introduce you guys to our next guest. She is Dr. Steinbaum. She's an attending cardiologist and specializing in prevention. She's recently opened a practice in New York City at the Julie Ash Integrative Health Center, encompassing heart health, wellness, prevention, as well as the effects of stress and inflammation on the heart health. She's a volunteer and representing the American Heart Association. Please help me welcome Dr. Steinbaum.
Hi, thank you for
Hi
having
there.
me, Nikki.
Hi there. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us today for this awesome opportunity to bring awareness.
It's so great to be with you, and I love your story. Your daughter sounds amazing, so congrats to you.
Thank you. So tell me, why is heart health so important to you, and what prompted you in your career and with your volunteer efforts on your focus for women's heart health in particular?
I just have to start with the most startling statistic from the American Heart Association. 1 in 3 women will die of heart disease. And here's the craziest thing. Recent studies are showing that women less than 55 years old have an increased risk of developing heart disease, cardiovascular disease, stroke. These statistics are focused on a population that are so healthy that we have considered so healthy, and we're seeing an increase in incidence of cardiovascular disease. When I started, there was actually no such thing as women in heart disease. And I always tell the story. I was in the emergency room, and there was a woman who was wheeled in. She was about 55 years old, and she was clearly sick. She was holding her chest, her stomach. She was nauseous and kind of writhing and very uncomfortable in the stretcher. And we brought her in, and the doctors that I really respected so much, who were my teachers and mentors, evaluated her and put her in the corner of the emergency room with the diagnosis of gastroenteritis, like inflammation of the stomach. And she proceeded to have a heart attack in the emergency room. And we watched it happen. And everything stopped. And I just sort of had that, Oprah's aha moment kind of thing. This woman had a heart attack in front of us, and that was it for me. When I said, here, a woman is having a heart attack, the answer was, women don't get heart disease. And I said, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. And was able to partner at that time with Go Red for Women through the American Heart Association to really talk about, educate, empower, advocate, and really help women understand that heart disease is her number one health risk.
Wow, that's incredible. And I mean, at the time, as a physician, from a physician perspective, I mean, do you ask the questions, or was it even going through your mind? Because obviously she was a woman, and that went through your mind, but are you thinking, not only is she young, but is there family history, and does she know her family history? How do you talk to your patients about family history?
Well, I will tell you, back then, it was different. I mean, this is now 17 years into Go Red for Women, and now we have a different conversation. But back then, it was like, you were a woman, you didn't get heart disease. And clearly, if you have a family history of heart disease, as a man, as a woman, as a human with a heart, your risk of heart disease goes up. And that conversation is critical. So every single person that I speak to, that is on the top of the list. We really talk about major risk factors: blood pressure, cholesterol, sugars, body mass index. These are major risk factors along with smoking. But on that list, 100% I agree with you. We have to talk about family history.
Absolutely. What would be the main message to women on how to prevent heart disease and heart attacks? Because I think sometimes we just assume that it's obesity or it's, another underlying condition. But the truth is, I'm a health advocate and wellness, expert, but I could still be walking around with oxygen and be 115 pounds. So can you kind of talk a little bit about what advice you would give to women and the perception of who can attain that?
I say the first thing is, every single woman who has a heart is at risk for heart disease. It doesn't matter what you look like on the outside. It's really what's going on the inside. And, family history is definitely a part of that. The most startling statistic from this perspective is that 80% of the time heart disease is preventable. So we get to look at our family history, but then we get to own our own health. And to the point of the work that you do and I do, it's really about lifestyle. It's not just about your weight, and it's not just about your diet or how much you exercise. It's about your whole lifestyle and how you choose to live your life. Every single day is a choice, and how you wake up in the morning and how you go through that day makes a huge difference in really living not only a heart healthy life, but combating the potential for this disease for all of us, but certainly for those with a family history.
And that's such a great point. And I really want to talk with you too and dive in on family support and what you think the best way families can support each other. One that I see commonly within households, and I'm sure you hear too, is, especially in rural America with my efforts in rural America, it's not a culture necessarily to look at those things until it's too late. But also with family support and family supporting you, the spousal support, the encouragement of your family, I think we all have it, but sometimes there's a struggle with that. So how do you talk to patients, or would you talk to women about being confident about the choices they're making sometimes when they're not maybe the most supported within your network or family? And then maybe tell people a little bit what they can do more for people in their family who have the high risk of heart disease.
It's so funny listening to your story. What you do within your home and what you do for yourself, your members of your family take notice. And certainly the kids are the most impressionable. So if you have kids in there, those are the people that you got to start with. I always tell this story when I have a son, and when he was 5, I gave him one of those little step monitors to wear on his pants. And I said, I'll count my steps today, you count yours. And he came home and he had like 100,000 steps or something. And I was like, where did you go? Pennsylvania? I mean, I was in New York. I couldn't imagine. And it turned out that all the teachers took it, all the kids took it. And the reason I share this story is that health becomes sort of contagious, for lack of a better word, and I hate using that word in the middle of a pandemic, but the more that you adopt a healthy lifestyle, the more that you can pass it along. Really doing this as a family unit is probably the best way to implement and stick to all these lifestyle changes. I mean, if somebody's going to have a bowl of ice cream after dinner and the other person's not, it kind of gets dicey. So if you say, we're going to do this together, I am going to support you, I'm going to be there for you, the more chance that the outcomes will stick. And I say to everyone, my patients will come in and I'll always say, get your spouse on the phone, bring them in, let's talk. Because the more I can get that spouse on board, the significant other, the kids, the household on board, the better chance we have to really reach those goals that we want to reach.
Yeah, and I always tell people too, if you ever want to be held accountable, tell a little kid. They will remind you that you're not doing your job, or you're not supposed to have something that you're not.
Yeah.
And don't you think they're really good like that?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about stress a little bit, because that obviously with everyone, even this day, self-care and less stress is always ideal. But let's talk about how lowering stress is important for heart health, and how do you lower your stress? What are some things you do?
Okay, let me just say this. I have never seen everyone so stressed. I mean, this has been the most challenging experience for all of us for many different reasons. So there is pervasive stress in the world. I will tell you, you are not alone, because we are all a little bit stressed out. And if there hasn't been a time to really figure out how to manage that stress, it's now. Stress really increases these hormones in the body, those fight or flight hormones. Those stress hormones increase the heart rate, increase the blood pressure, increase inflammation. They cause a lot of problems for us. So we have to really figure out how to manage stress. In the American Heart Association, I'm going to give you their tips and then I'll tell you what I do. But one of their first tips is positive self-talk. Now, this sounds really simple, but all of us can walk into any situation and see the negative. We're all good at that. This is bad. I can't do this. This isn't going to work out. All of that stuff, put it aside and really start saying things to yourself that boosts your spirit. I got this. I can do this. I'm capable. It's all going to happen. Even if you don't believe it, fake it till you make it. Just keep saying it over and over. And the next thing is really like the stress stoppers. How do you separate yourself from that stress? Count to 10, breathe, walk around the block, meditate, exercise, all of these things. And then the last one is really stress busting, which is laugh. Just laugh it off, because you can internalize all this stuff and it's not going to help or make a difference. So the more that you can put it into perspective, I always say you just have to shift your thinking about it. And really, if you can find laughter in it, that's probably the best way to handle it. I will tell you myself, I meditate. I find that when I can be grounded and just really go through that process of shutting off that crazy brain that goes through the checklist of the day and can worry about all those things, it's not good. And I will really force myself to just take that quiet time for myself. And personally, it's made a difference. And the other thing I do is I exercise. It's in my calendar, my schedule. I will not give it up because it is so critically important.
That's wonderful. I do all of that, but I also nap.
Oh, wow. I am so jealous.
Power
I don't
nap.
know how to do that. An hour nap?
No, I power nap.
Oh, power nap. I was like, oh, that's amazing.
I call it quiet time, but I've trained myself to power nap.
All right, good for you. Maybe you can teach me a little of that.
So we're almost done, but you are welcome to share everything else you can think of. What would be, if you had to give 5 tips, what would be 5 tips to everyone watching that they could implement in their lives that you would recommend to reduce their risk of heart disease?
Can I give more than 5?
You can give more than 5.
I cannot keep it to 5. So American Heart Association calls this thing, are you ready? Life Simple 7. And I just love that concept. There's simple things we can do. So we've got to look at those numbers. Getting those numbers in check is not a joke. It really, remember that I said 80% of the time heart disease is preventable? Well, like, how do you do that? You got to get those numbers down. So that blood pressure, cholesterol, sugar, weight, essential. Then the other side of it is, obviously we got the message, there's no smoking. Like, everyone's on board with that, right? It's a no-brainer. Everyone's got to quit smoking. But you do have to watch your diet. And as far as I'm concerned, exercise is the best medication. It's not a choice. You have to move. Everyone is sitting all day long right now on their computers, zoomed out. I mean, all we're doing is sitting. You've got to get up. You've got to move. And exercise is your best medication across the board. The next thing I'm going to tell you is also something that you've learned actually better than I have, which is the sleep issue. Sleep is really important. We all need to restore. We all need time to just let our cells restore themselves. So the next day we can wake up and tackle the day. And sleep is so critical. 7.5 hours of sleep is the sweet spot. If you're a power napper, more power to you. And the last thing is this stress management piece, which I think is so, so, so important. But I think in the big picture, and this is my last point, is that we all have to remember how precious our lives are. And we get one chance to live our lives to its fullest, the best we can. Embrace that and understand that your health is there for you so you can live that life to the fullest. So all of these things I'm telling you, it's not about sacrificing It's not about not eating your favorite foods and being miserable. It's about making choices that keep you healthy, living the best life you can.
Right, with the means you have. And how many patients, I mean, do you talk to patients about their options when, you know, if they don't have access to a gym or financially they can't afford a membership? I mean, those are all obstacles, but do you often work with them or give them advice on what they can do as an
Oh, yeah.
alternative?
100%, because I think
Good.
that we always can find an excuse for everything. Honestly, I'm sitting here and I could say to you, well, I don't have a chef, like, okay, but there's always something, and there's always a bar that you can raise and want it higher and higher to meet your healthcare goals. But at the end of the day, you don't really need much. You can go outside and walk. And I'm here in the middle of New York City. If you can afford a gym membership, it doesn't matter. You can't get one or use the gym. So what do you do? And it's really about getting up and just moving. In my home, I turn on the music and dance. It's all of these things that get your heart rate up. It does not matter what you choose to do. Jumping jacks, leg lifts. I'm telling you, the dance party works, so just find something that gets your heart rate up. You don't need anything fancy, anything too expensive. You just have to find something.
And for those concerned about the numbers, as far as learning the numbers, we have so much technology out there. We have the new Apple Watches, we have Fitbits, we have apps that you can download. But what are some things that you would recommend or baby steps in learning those numbers as they progress in their journey to know more about them?
I have to tell you that goredforwomen.org, the website, goredforwomen.org, so much information, not only about your numbers, but there's diet tips, exercise tips, stress management tips, talks about mindfulness, meditation, gratitude. I mean, there's so much there. And I will tell you that I recommend everyone get educated. The more you educate yourself, the more you become empowered, the more you can make the best choices for yourself. And the more, as life goes on, you get to advocate as you enter the healthcare system to get the help you need. So goredforwomen.org, I think, is the best place to go. And all of those different tools that you mentioned are really great parts of a heart healthy life. I mean, I got mine on, and so it's really part of my day.
Me too. Yay. Last question for today, does everyone need a cardiologist, and when would someone need to see one? So if it were me, I would say yes, because I am overprotective of my health. I have blood panels running everything. But what do you say? When do people need to see a cardiologist, and maybe when would you suggest that they need one, even if there's not a health issue quite yet?
So the guidelines say every woman should have their numbers known by 20 years old. And I agree with you in the sense that if you have a strong family history, you want to get to know a cardiologist. But I don't think everyone necessarily needs one, although I feel like I want everyone to come see me, and I know that's a strange thing. But I do feel that everyone needs a relationship, and they need to find a doctor that they can partner with, that they can communicate with. We always say the Go Red thing is the well woman visit. Every year, have your well woman visit. Go see a doctor, not necessarily a cardiologist, but get those numbers checked. And if you do have a family history, I think having a relationship with a cardiologist is important. I will also tell you, if those numbers are really off, your blood pressure is really high, cholesterol is really high, sugars are up, that's also the time. I would recommend really partnering with a cardiologist who is in partnership with your primary doctor, and really begin that journey sooner than later, because when you make changes, the outcome will be different.
Wonderful. And I wanted to take a quick minute to thank you and all the other health heroes out there. Thank you for everything that you do. Without you, we wouldn't be able to enjoy our family and be able to look forward to different things. You've given us all hope, especially this year. So thank you for that.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the Wellness Experience. On behalf of Us Weekly, I'd like to thank you, and I look forward to seeing you at our next event.